I think the morning opened up with a bang. It gave me some insight on the jihadi movement, which that's not my area of focus. And so I didn't know much about it. So I really appreciated learning that. The analytics, loved learning about that as well, because being able to measure the impact of social media and its impact in communities. And I know folks in the room were more interested in the business side of it. I hope that it meets their objectives, but for me as an activist, it definitely gives me some ideas on how we can measure our analytics. And of course, the conversation about Latinism and Black Twitter definitely resonates with me because I do work with women of color in the reproductive justice movement. In fact, the last 2 days I was doing Hill visits on the Hyde Amendment, repealing the Hyde Amendment, which basically lifts the ban on Medicaid access for abortion. So to be in this space has been fascinating. I think I think hearing people's truth was both challenging at times, but informative, because sometimes the truth is painful to hear. But I'm glad that people showed up as their authentic selves, and I didn't spare them my authentic self. So I'm just glad that we could show up in that space, because you rarely find spaces where you can interact with people that you typically don't. So I never talk to anyone from the Department of Defense. I am in feminist spaces 24/7. So being in this very male-dominated white space, it put me in I felt a little funny. I was not fully comfortable. And I felt that because there was a majority in the room who, for me and what I heard, seemed to be more conservative, it was challenging for me to be the only one in that space when normally I'm a part of a choir when I share my views. So I was a soloist, and I felt hostile territory slightly. Because I think that they were coming for me specifically because I am Black and a woman. I'm wondering, perhaps if I were a man, how that would have played out, how the gender dynamics would have played out, if they would have taken that much leverage and flexibility with some of their comments that I felt were a bit triggering for me. So yeah, but outside of all of those dynamics and kind of being a part of those dynamics, I feel like it was a great use of my time. My activist community is very happy that I'm here because they believe that I'm a strong representative for our voices. And so, yeah, I feel really good about it. Black Twitter is an organic tribe. So I feel that it's something that's already, it felt like, okay, yeah, we're doing that, and it's fascinating that now the Department of Defense is just kind of interrogating it and trying to figure out ways to use it for their ends now, when it came from the voices of the people and not necessarily around military strategies. So I hope that they're able to express some empathy as they use these mediums to advance whatever it is they're going to do with it. As we were closing out and people were saying what they were taking from the experience, people were saying things about, the business side of it and how can they use this to, being more curious about how they can translate that into their military strategies. So yeah, it feels, based on what I know about Twitter and the community that I'm involved with on Twitter, it feels very inauthentic. It feels very calculating. I'm curious, and I hope that they are able to express some level of empathy as they engage this process and really communicate with people and communities in an authentic way. Even if it's ways that we're uncomfortable with, because I feel like they're seeing the power of it, and I feel like they are they're struggling with how to control it. I am I'm not from Philadelphia. I live in Philadelphia right now. I am an activist and consultant. I do work in the reproductive justice movement. And the reproductive justice movement is a human rights movement that was founded by Black women about 20 years ago. And it looks at the fundamental human right to have a child, not have a child, and to parent your child in safe and sustainable communities free from violence. So my work as an activist, and engaging in Twitter is crucial because it's free media for us. You know, nonprofit organizations, particularly feminist organizations that focus on women and girls of color, typically aren't well resourced. So we have to pull on all of the resources that we can that are free to advance our message and advance our agenda. So I'm very curious about, after being in this space and gaining some insight on how the Department of Defense is thinking about Twitter. I think it definitely gives me some strategic insight on how I communicate this information to my activist community. So I'm very excited to take this information back. I'm going to write about it and make sure that they know that I represented our voice well and unapologetically, and hope that if in the future there may be some opportunity for partnership with more, federal government entities, that we could be in the room together in a space of mutuality and respect.